Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, independent financial advisor and owner of Elevation Financial. Thanks for joining me today. Glad you are here. Welcome. It is the end of the year, the end of 2021. I kind of forgot what year it is for a minute, 2021, I believe. So this is my last episode of the year. I'm going to take a couple weeks off here at the end of December for the holidays, just kind of recharge, take a break. I think that's good for all of us to do. So it's something I'm definitely going to do. And I like to do this every year. It's become kind of a tradition to indulge myself a bit and take one episode per year to talk about what it's like to work with me. For the vast majority of this podcast, my goal is to provide lots of value, to teach, to educate, provide insights, have conversations, things that are 100% educational, helpful, non-salesy at all. That's my goal. But I do take one episode per year to basically get a little salesy, to indulge myself and say, hey, you know what? Like, obviously, I would love it if some people would like to work with me. Not everyone's a great fit, but sometimes people reach out and we hit it off and it looks like it's a great fit. It looks like I can provide some value and help. And so I think it's useful one time a year to devote a whole episode to what it's like to work with me, just so people know. And I've had a lot of good feedback. I've had people say, hey, great, this is really awesome. Like, I've listened to you for a while, and I heard your episode on, what it's like to work with you. And it really helped me understand, the value of working with an advisor like you and kind of what the process was like. And it made me comfortable enough to reach out, and now we are working together. So it's really useful. So again, one time a year, it's all I do. So it's my one salesy episode. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that. So what is it like to work with me? So I'm going to start just kind of from the beginning on, first of all, the types of, people that I generally attract and like to work with. So first of all, I'm pretty open. Anyone that genuinely wants help and wants to work with me, generally, I don't think I've necessarily, turned someone away because they aren't like the perfect match for, my particular target market, so to speak. But so I have a lot of variety in clients I work with. So but I do have kind of a couple of specialties. One of my specialties is what I call socially conscious financial planning and ESG investing. So ESG investing, I've talked about on previous episodes here on the podcast. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, and this is the concept of aligning your money and investing your money in vehicles that in theory, make an effort to provide a positive impact in the world in the areas of the environment, of social justice, and in corporate governance. So some examples would be investing in funds that hold companies that avoid fossil fuels, that are making a positive impact on environmental issues. And the funds themselves often have an advocacy component where they encourage companies that are held in their portfolio to be better global citizens, to become more environmentally friendly, to have workplace policies that promote inclusion and issues that are empowering to employees in their workforce. So those are the types of funds that that go along with ESG investing. And in general, I just kind of tend to attract a more progressive, socially conscious type of clientele. Now, does that mean I don't have clients that don't fall in that category? No, it doesn't mean that. I have plenty of clients that don't necessarily have it on their radar to have those types of those things that are important to them. But I do tend to attract a lot of clients where those elements are important. They do have a progressive kind of impact-minded philosophy on life, and they like the fact that my financial practices and investment policies kind of go along with that. So that's kind of my specialty. I also work a lot with solo business owners. So a lot of times, my clientele will consist of solo business owners or small business owners, maybe a handful of employees, and that's kind of a specialty of mine as well. So I'll kind of start there, but I will say that as far as what it's like to work with me, I'll kind of walk you through start to finish, kind of the elements of what it looks like. And hopefully I'll give you a bigger kind of picture of what it is like to work together. So first thing, I have what I call a complimentary money session before anybody decides anything. So the first step that I recommend is to book an appointment on my website or reach out to me and we can schedule something. And I do about a 45-minute money session. And I don't call that like a sales meeting or whatever, I really call it a money session because I want it to be focused on you. So if you're interested in working with me, it's really focused on you and your questions. Now, obviously, people ask me questions and kind of want to get to know, what I do as well. But generally, I ask for, hey, what are your top three, top 2 to 3 money questions that you'd like to talk about? And people will pop in what they're curious about. They'll pop in what their questions are. They'll put in what they want to talk over. And that's what we really center on. We center on what are your questions and what do you need help with? I'll give feedback, I'll give insights, I'll give whatever help I can in that conversation to help them with those questions. And, then we kind of get a feel for, working together, what it looks like, and we'll kind of go from there. So, at that point, some people say, "Hey, great, I'm good to go," and maybe we kind of both decide, "Hey, not a great time to work together. No big deal. We'll keep in touch." Or often, the person I'm talking to will say, "Hey, great, let's get started." So, what does it look like to get started? So, first thing I do is send over my agreement via DocuSign. It's all electronic. You can just click and sign from your phone. The agreement just kind of outlines working together, and the two questions that come up, if there are any questions, are one is, where is my money stored if I'm working with you? And two, is it a long-term contract? The answer to the first question is your money is always going to be stored with a qualified custodian, kind of like a bank that holds your investments. And I am simply kind of on record on your accounts to help, manage those investments with you. But the money that, we invest together for you is always in your name. It's always in your accounts. You always have 100% complete control over it. So that's one question that sometimes comes up. And another question that comes up again is the contract length. There's no long-term contracts. Everything's month to month. You can work with me as long as you would like, or as short a time as you would like. So there's no lock-in or long-term contracts. So those are the questions that come up sometimes on the agreement. So once you sign off on the agreement, then we kind of kick things off. So I'll kind of pause here and talk about pricing. So pricing wise, there are kind of two levels of pricing, or two phases of pricing, I should say. The first level is the upfront fee for the planning. So I do a planning phase upfront, and I have a sliding scale for that. So currently, as of the time of this episode being recorded, my sliding scale is $450 if your household income is over 100,000. If your household income is between 50 and 100, it's $300. And if it's less than 50,000, it's 150. So it's a sliding scale. And I do that to make sure that I'm accessible to anybody that needs and wants help. So if your income is a little bit on the lower side, you're kind of at an earlier stage in your career, maybe, I don't want price or fee to be an obstacle to working together. So that's my sliding scale. It may change in the future, but for now, that's where it is as of the time of this podcast. So after that, we kind of kick off the planning phase. Before I go on, let me go back to the second part of the pricing. The other part of the pricing is any investments that I'm managing for you. Then there's a fee that comes out of that on a quarterly basis as well. And there's a fee schedule on my website. It's all kind of outlined in a transparent way, so you can go take a look at that. So then we kick off the first meeting. We have a 3-session kind of startup phase to get the plan put together. I put a financial plan together for you. And the first phase is the get organized meeting. So prior to the get organized meeting, I will send you an invitation to Right Capital, which is my planning software. And it will ask you to kind of walk through and fill in financial information. And it'll ask you things like, your income from all sources, your current investment accounts, your current bank accounts, life insurance, goals, family information, just a bunch of stuff that kind of gets me a nice, clear picture of where your finances are. And here's a spoiler alert. No one ever gets it totally complete, and that's okay. I expect that. I have had maybe 1 or 2 people that have gotten it like 99% complete. But the purpose of our Get Organized meeting is to literally get organized. It's to kind of fill in the gaps that are there at that point. So most people get to maybe between 50 and 75% of the data filled in. And during that Get Organized meeting, we will sit down together, we'll go through all of it, and we will go through the planning portal and fill in gaps. I'll ask a bunch of questions. I'll kind of talk through things. I'll correct a few things that weren't clear. And by the way, this is all done over Zoom typically. So I meet with clients all over the country, all 50 states. It's all done virtually over Zoom. So I'm 100% of a virtual service. So wherever my client is in the US, we're just meeting virtually. So we go through that. And by the end of that meeting, we should have a very complete picture of kind of where your financial situation is, a nice snapshot, so to speak. So that's the foundational kind of first step, because it's really important for me to get as much information and data as possible in place, because that kind of drives my ability to make better recommendations and talk over your finances with you. So that is our first meeting. Then we'll schedule our next follow up, which is a goal setting meeting. So in the second meeting, the second time we meet, we're going through goals, kind of dreams, wishes, stuff that's important to you in the future. Um, things that are on your radar that you'd like to accomplish. Whether you're single or as a family, whatever that looks like for you. That's what we fill in there. We talk about your big why behind why money is important to you. What's your reason for building wealth? It's important, I think, to kind of latch onto that and pin that down as an overarching kind of driving factor behind everything we do together. So we work on that, and we end up with a kind of a one-page snapshot of strengths, challenges, the big overarching reasons for building wealth, some of the goals that are important to you, and that really helps me understand you better. And I find it helps by the act of documenting those things. It often provides a lot of clarity immediately for the people I'm working with as well. Because how often do we sit down and do this? Well, never. We really don't. We don't document our goals. We don't document, what's important to us about money. So by documenting it, that has value right there inherently in that individual step. So we do that. We talk over a couple of the things. I kind of prompt for, hey, I'm going to send an investment questionnaire over. We'll talk about investments next. So then we schedule our third meeting, which is the plan review meeting. At this point, this is kind of earmarked for reviewing the financial plan. Now, I'm very careful at this point to say, hey, I'm not calling this a financial plan to make it feel like it's this, sacred document etched in stone tablets or anything. It's wrong as soon as it's done, because life changes by the minute. And so it's meant to really be a starting point. One of my big mantras for financial planning is our goal is not to be exactly right all the time. Our goal is to be less wrong over time. So the goal is, hey, if we're really wrong today about your future, let's be a little less wrong tomorrow, and next time we meet, be a little less wrong. And if we can get less and less wrong, then we can get you in a spot where you feel good about your money, you feel really good about your future, and you're able to kind of see a clear path to what's ahead and lower anxiety and lower stress and have more confidence about your money. So that's the goal. So we review the plan together, and the plan again is a fluid concept. It will, there's a document I produce, but a lot of it is kind of going into the portal and doing some, pulling of levers and adjusting things and saying, hey, what if we saved a little more here? What if you cut a little bit more here? What if your income does this next year? And kind of going through some scenarios. So that's the starting point for the plan. So we talk over that together. We fill in some action items for implementation, and every year I give my clients a very short list of bullet points of things that are important to accomplish in that given year. So it might be things like, hey, save X thousand dollars into this investment account, and Y into this one, and Z into this one, and acquire this level of insurance, and kind of just a really short set of bullet points that attach to the plan. And the idea is that if you accomplish those things throughout the year, then you are on track according to the plan. So I try to keep it really digestible and really user friendly. So that is the setup process. After that, there's usually one or two follow-up meetings that are short. We usually, meet 30 minutes here and there to kind of follow up on things. If there are implementation items that you need help with, setting up insurance, I'll make referrals for other experts that we need to bring in, things like attorneys, insurance agents, things that you might need for other elements in your financial life. So we'll work on that together as well. And by the way, throughout this, it's really important to be individual and customized for your situation. That being said, if you are married or in a committed partnership, I think it's really important that we're meeting together. That both of you together are we're all working together in tandem. So it doesn't really work very well if one person in the relationship is the only client I'm working with, unless they keep their finances separate. Now, if your finances are separate and you kind of operate that way from a lifestyle standpoint, then that can work. But I will say that generally, if you kind of combine your finances, you think of your household together to a certain point, then it makes a lot of sense to work together as a couple. So whether you're individual or couple, I want to make sure I'm customizing it to what makes sense for you and your situation, not a one size fits all, but just some things to think about. So at that point at the end, I shouldn't say at the end because it never ends, but at the end, that's kind of where we kind of take a pause and say, okay, great, we've got a good financial plan put together, we got some direction to go. Now at the next point, we are kind of heading toward um, the next phase, which is kind of moving into ongoing relationship, ongoing service. So at that point, the general, I call it the annual service calendar. What I do is I do ongoing investment management. So I'm monitoring investments and changing things out as needed, and kind of keeping investments on track. That's kind of an underlying thing always happening. And then I reach out 3 times a year. At the beginning of the year, I reach out for we have investment conversations. I do ESG reports. I kind of show you the impact of your money if you have an ESG preference. So we go over those things together. We talk about tax prep, just kind of beginning of the year stuff. Middle of the year, it's more of a financial plan check-in, accountability check-in. End of the year, it's a checklist of other things like insurance review, estate planning review, things that are more relevant to end of the year. So I reach out 3 times a year to prompt a meeting to review whatever you'd like to review, in addition to some things I would suggest. Now, I send this via email. I say, hey, I'd love to meet to talk about these things. Here is a link to my scheduler. And most of my clients do. They click on the link and they schedule something. Sometimes the people I work with will respond and say, hey, we're a little busy right now, but we think we're good to go. We think we're okay. We can kind of push the next meeting. Totally fine. Some people won't respond. They just kind of get busy, or they feel like it's not something they need to do right at this moment. I'm totally fine with that. My goal is to be here as a support resource, not someone to nag you necessarily. I will nag about things that you want me to nag you about, but in general, my goal is to be a financial project manager. So as a financial project manager, I'm prompting and I'm providing, guidance and advice when desired. And that's kind of my role. So that is kind of the ongoing view of the relationship from the point where we kind of wrap up the planning phase and go into ongoing service indefinitely. As part of that, I'm also available on demand anytime. So anytime anyone I work with wants to meet, you can reach out, email, call, ask questions, book a meeting. My calendar is online, always available. So you can book a meeting for anything you want to talk over. So that's sort of on demand advice whenever you want. And I also work with business owners as kind of incidental consulting in business as well. I certainly don't claim to know everything about business, but I've been an entrepreneur for over 2 decades, 25 years now at this point. So I have a lot of conversations with business owners around challenges they're having in business. So that's something I do as well as part of the relationship. So that is generally what it looks like to work with me. But it's all very kind of clinical and dry, and I kind of describe the mechanics and nuts and bolts of it. So I want to take a minute as I wrap up to also talk about kind of the value and the benefit. I'm not trying to be salesy here because if someone wants to work with me, great. If they don't, no big deal, totally fine. But I will say I really enjoy working with the people that I do work with, because I think money is foundational as an undercurrent to everything we do in life. In our society, that is such an important undercurrent to the choices we have, the opportunities we have. And so it's really important to me to help people understand money and have a great relationship with their money, and be able to be intentional and confident with their money. And the work that we do together, it's not so much spreadsheets and math, although that's important, but a lot of it is just having someone as a third party to talk about money with, and to make decisions with, and just get some advice on decisions along the way and what to do with money. Like, that's sometimes enough to dramatically change your trajectory in life. And so it's really exciting to be able to work with people on these things, because a few conversations, a few decisions, a few habits formed around money little by little over time that we can iterate on can mean the difference between retiring early and with wealth and being able to do good in the world, or having to work longer than expected and kind of struggling with money throughout your life and having that stress, that anxiety. So these a little bit of change can make a dramatic difference in the paths you end up on sometimes. So it's really exciting to see that. And I find it really fulfilling. And my clients often tell me, hey, you've made such a difference in our lives because we never talked about this stuff before. We kind of felt stuck. We kind of just didn't know what to do with our money or how to invest it or what the best routes would be for us. And just kind of getting people unstuck is really helpful. So it's really been exciting. I've really loved the journey of partnering with people when it comes to working with them on their money goals. And it's really exciting. I love what I do. So that's kind of my spiel there. So I will kind of wrap it up there. I think I've gotten everything that is an important detail on how to work with me. There are little details that we haven't dug into because that would take hours, but generally that's the concept. That's kind of how it is to work with me and what it might look like. So this is my last episode for the year. I will kick off 2022 with my 3 words exercise. I do that every year as well. And that is where I kind of go through and share the 3 words I've defined for the year that kind of drive my energy for that year. So I will be back in January with sharing my 3 words with you. So with that, I will wrap it up there. And as always, in the spirit of my one salesy episode for the year, I will say that if you've been listening for a while and you kind of feel like we might be a good fit to work together, you feel like maybe it could be helpful to talk over some money questions, go ahead and take this opportunity to go ahead and make that decision to reach out. I'd love to chat. I'm super non-salesy. If we meet and you just feel like it's good to work together, I'm going to be like, great, no big deal. We'll keep in touch if you want. Totally fine. I'm not even going to follow up. I'll just kind of keep in touch if you want anything. But if you do want to reach out and talk, there's a button on my homepage at elevationfinancial.com. You can book a money session there. I don't have any appointments left for this year, so we'll meet in January or February whenever you can find a slot. And I'm happy to chat and talk over any questions you have. So feel free to reach out. With that, have a great rest of the day, great rest of the year, great holiday season, and thanks again. See you next time.